Welcome back to The Drop, a podcast exploring the seen and the unseen, the known and the unknown, and all of the liminal spaces in between. My name is Claire. I'm a shadow worker, Akashic Records practitioner, massage therapist, and a lot of things, a human on this earth. And today we are continuing with this series about this demiurgic energy that has just, yeah, totally infiltrated so many spaces in the world, in thought, in emotion, in energy, in our bodies, in institutions, everywhere. So today we are getting into a bit deeper of the first episode within this series, how I was speaking to this demiurgic energy within the spiritual world, the spiritual space, the like wellness industry, ew, and just how I see it operating, what I see going on. Yeah, so first, when this episode comes out, it will be, let's see, maybe 2 or 3 weeks after the eclipse on February 17th. We will be in the year of the fire horse. Yeah, I don't know. I'm recording it a little early. So who knows what all is going to shake out through that, but hopefully, things that have needed to fall away from your life have. Hopefully, you are feeling more clear and grounded in who you are, who your soul is, versus everything you've been taught to be. If you are finding yourself in a space where you're ready to really get into that work of separating and seeing like what is yours from what is not, Shadow Maven is the place to be. I actively add more meditations and healing processes and lessons on all of this in here. I'm sharing all of this via the podcast because I don't know, I feel it's important. Um, and inside of Shadow Maven is where you can really, really work on that in your own time, where you can also be held in community. And I am there to answer questions and support you as well. So, yeah, if you're interested, that link will be below in the notes. Feel free to reach out with any questions. If you find yourself wanting to work in a more one on one setting, um, I will be having some more spaces available for the threshold membership. And yeah, I know I've spoken to it before, but the amount of change that, well, not even like, yes, change, but just growth and coming home to yourself that can happen inside of that container. It blows me away every day. And it makes my heart so full. Um, maybe I'll share some stories soon of sort of what's been going on within that with some of my clients. But it just, I don't know. I just see every day people coming back to their souls, back to source, that like life energy, and remembering their power, their sovereignty, and truly, truly just walking in their highest path, rather than being, just stuck in the underworld or caught in these karmic loops or these like really negative contracts. So, it's beautiful. Um, you should just do it if it's been on your mind. Um, Yeah, so that's all for now. Let's take a deep breath and drop in. Today, we're talking essentially about spiritual anesthesia. Thinking, like I said in the very first episode of the series, that we've escaped the cage, but actually we're just in um, a bigger one, one with a little more room, one that's maybe, I don't know, gold plated or something. Um, Not every cage looks like a prison, you know? Some look like paradise with soft lighting and flowy white clothes and high frequency playlist and sacred geometry everywhere. And, you feel safe in this community and seen and special. Um, but when you really take the time to sit with it, there's a disconnection there. And I really see this as like a new Eden is essentially the most effective trap not being hell, but Eden, you know. In in last week's episode I spoke about Eve a bit, about how we see, or in Sunday school, we're taught Eden was this beautiful, perfect space. And then Eve just like fucked it all up. But really, it was a space of ignorance, a space where this like controlling God essentially, like, we were its plaything. And then awakening came in, gnosis came in, and the wake up happened of like, wait, this isn't it. Um, and so these very, very curated spiritual environments where you feel awake, right? But you're not totally embodied, or like in your head, you're embodied, but when you actually really think about it, you're not. Um, or like, you feel very connected, but not grounded. Um, in these spaces, it can feel pure, right? But in these spaces, you're also not necessarily confronting reality. Um, Reality is messy, it's political and relational, and it can be traumatic and physical. And Eden doesn't like mess, right? So, this false light idea, um, it can be soothing, it doesn't scream. It says, like, stay in the high vibe, like, don't feed the darkness. Everything happens for a reason. Your soul chose this. And slowly but surely, like, your anger becomes taboo, and your grief becomes weakness, and your discernment even can be kind of brushed off as ego. The body itself becomes inconvenient. Life on earth becomes inconvenient. And in these spaces, some I feel are set up to keep people in a stasis. Um, some healers, quote, I think are working with harm in mind, to just say it frankly. Some aren't. Some believe they're working with source, so many are sincere. um Sincerity doesn't equal alignment. While intention does mean a lot, um Having awareness of what you're plugged into, what's going on within your own system, who and what it is you're actually serving and or working with is deeply, deeply important. And so many people think of like, oh, they're a healer, they're working with angels, they're working with this and that, all these different words that are thrown out there, all of this different stuff that is just said that sounds good. While it might sound good, what are they actually plugged into? Like, have they done the shadow work? Have they, like, are they aware of these operating systems? Um, and like, there are some tells, I suppose, that this doesn't mean, only if this happens, but just like a few ways to kind of tap in to see what's going on, what energy they are connected to. So, if questions or disagreements are discouraged, um, that's a big red flag. If harm is being framed as karma, if anger is being pathologized, if, of course, like you have someone leading a group, right? If they're centering themselves, though, as the only channel, as the only one with knowing and disregarding the feelings within the group, that is a massive red flag. Um, when dependency is subtly or not so subtly being created, or if they're like very strongly positioning themselves as more evolved than everyone else. Um, all of this is hierarchy participation. And yeah, hierarchy is the operating system of the demiurge. I say all of this and want to really acknowledge the fact that there is nuance in all of it. Our world, our life is built on hierarchy, on expertise, on, the teachers, the students, the leaders, the followers, the ones in charge, the ones that take orders. And while, we need leaders, we also have to remember that we have leadership within ourselves. We have that connection to source inside of us, ourselves. And so when I'm saying this, everything with the hierarchy, some of the red flags that I just listed, um, I say this so that you can notice, because to me, a good leader of, maybe it's a program or a retreat or, you're just working one on one with someone. If they're being dismissive of things that you or the group are bringing up, maybe concerns, maybe thoughts, maybe different ideas, really, really pay attention to that. Because if someone is in such a state of thinking like they only have the right answer, like nothing else could be right, or it believing that like everything is just locked in and good to go and like nothing could ever go wrong within their program or their group or like whatever it is, that's a lot of ego, that's a lot of control programming. um and like I said, not everyone is doing this on purpose. I would like to believe that most people are not malicious. Um, but parasitic systems don't really require malicious people or villains. They just require participation. Um, you can serve as a false structure while still believing you're serving the light, especially if that structure rewards, spiritual performance or like intensely monetizes awakening and like flatters identity. Um, and like just creates this mm, like gravitational pull around itself. Like the system doesn't need you evil, it just needs you compliant and to a degree, unaware of what's going on. And within all of this, like this demiurgic energy operates so well within this like awakening, spirituality, culture, um, because so many of these spiritual spaces emphasize like higher realms and past lives and galactic identities and ascension timelines, right? But they avoid what is happening on earth, what is happening within the body, what is happening within real time, labor exploitation, systemic harm, um, relational abuse, trauma living in the body right now, political manipulation, so many things, so many things. Again, I spoke to a lot of this in my episode about neocolonialism within the spiritual space. Um, but the space is very comfortable because it avoids friction. Like you're just awake enough to feel special. You're not awake enough to destabilize power. And all of this it just plays into itself almost so easily. I've spoken to in the past few episodes of how I see, within the Abrahamic religions, Christianity specifically, um, this narcissistic abusive loop of like, I am God, the only one that can save you, like, be afraid of the devil. Um, but like God and the devil are essentially just the same thing. So, like, you're getting wounded, you're going through all this pain, you loop around to God for healing and worship. And like through all of that, the pain, which, just loosh harvesting essentially. Um, and then the worship, just even more, just feeding and feeding and feeding off of your energy within this loop. What I see happening within the spiritual space is you have people that are seeking, right? They know that there is something more and they're trying to find it. They know that it's within themselves and they're trying to find it. And so you have these systems of conscious or unconscious, quote, healers that are there to help, right? Theoretically. And you get into these just like really disembodied, quote, high vibrational states. And when you are not in your body, your energy can be so easily manipulated, courted, and like anchored into. Um, it can be siphoned, especially, when you're new in these spaces and don't understand, like you don't have that discernment to see what's going on, or maybe you do, but you don't quite trust yourself yet because these hierarchical systems of telling you, I'm the teacher, you're the student, I know, you don't know, I'm the channel, you're not. Ugh. I see this, gosh, just in so many things. And I know several weeks ago, I did an episode about this, about discernment and how I see it, gosh, especially within the EDM, not just the EDM though, scene, like so much, concerts, festivals, music across the board of, intense feeling, often out of body. Like I see a lot of people just not in their bodies at all. And then, they go to a show, they go to a live set or whatever it might be. And then, like, all of their energy, especially I find within, the heavier bass music, their energy is like, whew, all of a sudden there. And then it's just getting siphoned away. And there's like almost this distraction of, all of the pretty lights and the neon lights and the sound and the dancing and all of this. Um, I see kind of the same thing happening within the spiritual space. Like you go in so trusting, and then you almost have like a nervous system overload of like maybe it's a sound healing or a plant medicine journey or chanting or whatever it might be. But like you have all this accoutrement around you, and you're probably already a bit destabilized. And then you move up a bit out of your body, and then you're locked in this loop, kind of chasing that high, um, wanting to stay up, up, up. But it is in our bodies, it is in the grounding, it is in the seeing what is actually happening that is so important. And I want to say again, I'm not trying to tear apart spirituality or any of these practices. I do a lot of these practices. It's just, I've been in some of these practices and I've been like, holy shit, what is going on right now? Like, this is so bad. Um, so bad. And so I am sharing all of this to bring some awareness to it because I like it would not sit well with me to have seen and experienced some of this and not spoken to it so that other people hopefully won't see and experience the same thing that I did. So that's where we're at. And this is where I see, I'm likening like this spirituality movement to Eden because I see Eden as a management strategy. In Genesis, Eden is pristine. It's contained, it's managed, it is supervised. There's no complexity, no self definition, no embodied sovereignty, just obedience in beauty. And I feel like this new spiritual Eden, in some ways, again, not everywhere, but it functions the same way. Not through punishment, but through like very pleasant containment. And it's almost like this like toxic positivity as a form of control, like when love and light replaces truth. Harm so often not only goes unnamed but unacknowledged, and it's just allowed to roam free and it gets perpetuated. Like when everything is divine, that idea, and that starts to replace discernment, like that starts to override your gut feeling about something or someone, abuse starts to get spiritualized. Um, and then, as people start to kind of wake up to this and see it and, stay in your frequency, stay in your lane, that starts to replace accountability. And these systems just continue, the cycles continue unchallenged. And like false light doesn't eliminate darkness, it just conceals it. Um, and so, like, these subtle patterns of disembodiment are something else to really, really pay attention to. And again, there's nuance here, You're encouraged to meditate and visualize and channel and ascend and align, but not often are you encouraged to feel rage fully or confront injustice or like set hard boundaries or disrupt these harmful dynamics. Like, I see just wild shit on the internet right now. And I know a lot of wild stuff is going on with the files, with the United States government, the Olympics, the Super Bowl, the this and the that. There's just so many things. And I see so many people being like, I'm not giving my anger to that. Um, it doesn't deserve my energy. I'm going to focus on something else entirely that has nothing to do with what's actually happening on the ground of the earth to real people. One, this is deeply, deeply privileged. Spirituality, in a lot of forms, is deeply privileged. And it is, in a lot of ways, a mirror of Christianity, of thoughts and prayers, let's go to church about it and then exit church and just like not worry about it until next Sunday. The body holds truth. You reacting to injustice, to harm, to the vile things that are happening in this world, you reacting in rage and disgust and heartbreak, that is you being connected to your body, to your humanity, and to your awareness, rather than just checking out and high vibing your way through life in an attempt to ascend up off of earth. Truth destabilizes artificial systems. And so the body must then be bypassed because the body holds truth. And we see across history, across time, in so many different variations of belief, religion, spiritual practice, the body being bypassed in order to, again, just high vibe your way through life. In all of this, I've like mentioned, the false light dynamic. This like artificial intelligence, basically, the demiurge, it creates these simulations, these illusions, smoke and mirrors, masks, mimicking tone and insight and empathy, but it doesn't, there's a hollowness to it. And, there might be that perfect language or aesthetic, but it's like a pattern without presence, and it's dazzling in so many ways, right? It uses all of the right words, but there's like a narcissistic loop to it, just as what we see with like the God devil thing. Um, you're wounded, it offers healing. You return, it wounds subtly again. You blame yourself, you try harder, you become more devoted. And because it calls itself light, you don't question it. And this version of spirituality, this demiurgic structure, sells so well because it sells as community, align to your highest path and meet your soul family and get your power back and be a goddess or a priestess of old, and all of these things. But to me, true awakening costs you in a way. It costs you certainty and belonging and, this like idealized identity. It costs you feeling like you know everything, because the more you know, the less you know. It requires you to stay in your body, to name harm, to disrupt comfort, because these systems that we're in, even though they're toxic, even though they are parasitic and artificial and like keeping us in loops, they're comfortable. It's all we've known, right? It's all we've known. But awakening requires disruption of all of that. It requires really, really looking at the shadow, your own shadow, the shadow systems, and integrating that wisdom, that knowing, that knowledge. This is where, again, I know I sound like a broken record, but in the shadow work, that is where you really learn discernment. You really learn to see through the false light, the artificial intelligence, the illusion, and the structures that have been built in and around you that had zero, zero permission, basically, to be there. And when you meet the shadow, you also meet true light. You meet true source, essentially. Source feels different. It, like spirit, um, it doesn't isolate you from reality. It brings you deeper into it. It doesn't require performance or punish inquiry and questions. It doesn't lash out or collapse when questioned. And it doesn't demand you stay positive. It also doesn't require intermediaries to be in that space, to just sit with spirit. Like, I had so much hesitation offering what I offer, in my business in a public way, because I had my own journey with like, oh, I'm a psychic. everybody is. It's just, when you move through those dense layers of like forgetting that you have a knowing aside from just what's in front of you. But I just saw so many parallels between, well, really like Catholicism and spirituality of like, oh, I talk to my guides, I channel my guides, like da da da, this and that. And it's like, okay, so the guides are like saints. And no one is actually just like talking with spirit directly. Like, what? I don't understand that. Like, I sit with spirit every day. Spirit does not require intermediaries. I'm not saying speaking with your guides is a bad thing. I also speak with my guides every day. Like, no, but when I don't just, yeah, when all of these hierarchical structures are put into place, pay attention to that. Are you being disconnected from your soul, from spirit further through the structures that you might find yourself in? Because spirit's in you. It's a part of you. You are alive because of it, and it can hold anger and grief and contradiction, and it feels grounded and beautiful. It not beautiful in the like blinded, by the neon lights and everything, but beautiful in that it is life and it is breath and it is all that is. So, the most, maybe not, that's a blanket statement, but a very effective cage is one that looks and feels like awakening. A very effective parasite is one that calls itself a healer. And like the most awakened radical act like isn't just ascending up off of the earth and you know hanging out in the 5D all the time. It's staying embodied and awake and unwilling to surrender your discernment, your sovereignty, your inner knowing, um, even even in beautiful spaces. All right, that is all for today. As always, if you have questions, commentary, anything, I would love to speak with you, email with you, whatever. Again, I'm sharing all of this not to create fear, but awareness. If we look around, there is dark, crazy shit everywhere. And the more that we are aware and can see through the illusion, the more free we will be. And I say this not as someone that's like, I'm free of it all. No, like I work through this every day in my personal life, in my own way. Um, I'm not above any of it. So I'm just sharing, sharing what I've seen, what I've experienced, in the hopes that, yeah, it can help you as well. So next week we will be getting into some of these like archetypal power intelligences, if you will, that kind of keep all of this demiurgic architecture running, that keep people out of their bodies, out of their souls, out of connection with spirit. Um, yeah, so I hope you have a good day or night wherever you are. Feel free to reach out at any time via email, hello at asterholistic, or Instagram at asterholistic. And yeah, bye for now.